Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order, and first we're going to have roll call.
Ms. Bex,
Here.
Ms. Cooper Payton,
Here.
Ms. Harrell, Ms. Hetland is excused, Mr. Jacobson, Ms. Jones is excused, Ms. Orcherton is excused, Ms. Salmon,
Here.
and Ms. Snyder is excused.
Okay. Next is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Did anybody have any corrections or questions? Actually, I have one correction. Where it says presentation for Jared Finn, Empowered. Okay, if you go to the paragraph under that, and the third line up at the very end, it says, at the commission for the grant received. That's just a sentence fragment. I think 2 sentences got spliced there. So if you can just delete that. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Oh, you're right. Okay, so we can't approve them technically.
You can approve them next month.
We'll approve them next month. You're right.
I guess additions and things like
Right. Okay. Let's go ahead then with... There we go. Okay, let's start with the staff report then.
that. I did have one announcement.
Go ahead.
Addition to the, I don't know if this is on, excuse me.
To the
I had
agenda.
one addition to the agenda.
Okay, go ahead.
And that was to recognize Erica Cooper Payton, who is going to be leaving the commission to pursue some of, to pursue back some of her time and to put it towards other projects. We've been really privileged to have Erica with us, and Erica's expressed an interest in maybe serving on juries or working with us in other capacities, so we're
Great.
really excited about that. But I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge her and all of the hard work you've put into the commission. I also have a thank you note and something that's in here that you'd like to open. So you can open it now.
Like,
Because
when
it's
you say
very
you can,
special.
does it mean do it now?
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, probably do it.
There's that misplaced structure,
There we go.
right? Now, like in Christmas, this is horrible for me. Everyone's like, don't watch me on this. I'm bad at it. I'm trying not to, like, knock anyone. Aww. Wow. I can't get it.
Parkway. Nice.
That is adorable. And giant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for all of your help.
Okay, now we can go ahead, I guess. Excuse me.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I want to just make a note of thanks for those who are able to be here tonight. This is not our typical time, so you agreed to come to a meeting when our dates had to be pushed back a little, so thank you for being here. This is your October staff report, and we've had a lot happen since we've seen each other last. September and this first few weeks of October have been some pretty busy times for the arts program. So let me begin by talking a little bit about our 4th annual Urbana Art Expo, which took place on September 14th through 16th at the Urbana Civic Center. This year we featured the work of 17 artists. We included live musical performances, and featured artists included Becky Canine, Carolina Rodriguez, Cindy Sampson, Drea Ahrens, Eka, Erica Ray Stark, Esther Rowe, Freya Replinger, Kelly Hieronymus, Kristen Gilmore, Lynn Hawkinson-Smith, Mark Anthony Macon, Marie Castile, Megan Hines, Ralph Rother, Sikani Reed, and Sierra Murphy. These are some pictures from the event itself. We were proud to have quite a number of people come through. I think around 400 people came through on the first day, and quite a number on the, maybe it was more towards like 450 total, I believe. But we had quite a number of people come through. This was our first time trying out two full days. And we are going to be having a debrief meeting hopefully this next coming week to talk a bit more about what we liked and what we disliked and what might be the best way forward. This is also going back to our original time of September. When I came on as the public arts coordinator, we had shifted things back to November simply because I started in August, giving us some more time to plan. And November was seemingly pretty well liked in some regards by the artists that participated. And we got a little bit of initial feedback that the artists prefer a date closer to November. But we're going to be surveying all the artists that participated to kind of get a sense of what they'd like to see going forward. Yes, and we're also exploring other venues because, as you may have heard, the Civic Center will be closing its doors at the end of the year. So going forward, I also want to talk a little bit about Open Scene Open Mic. Open Scene Open Mic kicked off this past summer. We made it at the time a bi-monthly, or as some say bi-weekly, this is a hotly debated word choice. Twice a month, we featured it during the summer. In order to make it a little more manageable, we've scaled back a little bit, so we're going to be having it once a month. So our next one coming up is on November 14th, features host DJ Silky, and it will include it'll be the first one that's actually held at the Independent Media Center, our core partner for this program, and they'll have an IMC open house in conjunction with this. So come out if you haven't been out to an Open Scene Open Mic yet. I want to mention that September was originally talked about as the date when Susan Prenti's Art Now episode is coming out. There was a small delay with some staff vacation and other needs, so we ended up pushing it back. So she has been airing since mid-September, and she's going to be through October. And this is Susan Prenti. Susan is a local storyteller. She's the founder of the School for Designing Society, identifies as a composer, as a thespian, and I think of her as a fantastic local thinker. She's going to have this episode be airing now throughout the end of the month. And it airs at 6:15 every Monday on UPTV6 with reruns at 11 p.m. on Tuesdays. And it's also online on the UPTV channel. I can't remember where we left off with this, but we did get Art Now converted into a radio program. So the radio show airs right now on WRFU, and my intention is to propose it as a syndicated show on WEFT and see if they might be interested in having it air there as well. And the other thing that's happened with Art Now is that we've been able to work with the editors and writers for the Smile Politely art section to have it featured in Smile Politely as a regular feature where the arts writers actually come out to the filming with me. Cool. And they interview the artists separately. And they write their own kind of record of the interview with the artist and a little bit about their own reflection. That ends up becoming a monthly column that links back to our episode. So that's been really a wonderful collaboration and partnership there too. I want to mention that Artists of the Corridor's current exhibit on display is Loomed Beadwork by Judy Spencer. It's a collection of bead weaving art exploring pattern landscapes and design. The exhibit is on display through the end of October at the Urbana Free Library and City of Urbana's hallways. The exhibition included an opening reception on October 3rd, and it will have a closing reception this week, October 25th, Thursday, beginning at 6:30 p.m. until 8 p.m. at the Urbana Free Library's downstairs Lewis Auditorium. Our closing receptions have traditionally been a family-friendly sort of reception and includes some hands-on activities, so youth will get a chance to also try their hands at bead weaving. And there'll be a little bit of a show and tell with Judy Spencer. She's bringing her loom. So we absolutely invite you to help us get the word out about this event on Thursday and attend yourselves. Art at the Market is our partnership with Urbana's Market at the Square occurs every second Saturday of the month during farmers market season. Our October Art at the Market was technically October 13th, and we did in fact invite Weiskamp Screen Printing, who had previously been at the market but was rained out, so had to leave early, wanted to come back, so they came back and did their screen printing activity. We also are really excited because we have teamed up with the Farmers Market to continue I think at this point, long-held tradition of sponsoring something called Market at the Scare, which is our last, at this point in time, our last farmers market. Our farmers market, as you may or may not have heard, is sort of transitioning to the indoor market a week earlier than previous years. So October 27th is actually the last farmers market of the season outdoors. So we are going to have Market at the Scare, and this has been sort of a Halloween, fall-themed celebration at the farmers market. The Urbana Public Arts Program has been working hard to provide lots of different little activities at our nook of the market, and we have sponsored our regular concert, and we actually moved our concert and activity, and then we're able to fill in with Wise Camp for our regularly scheduled second Saturday. But the feature for this month will be Urbana Pops Orchestra playing kind of haunted tunes, and then we'll have Melissa's Monsters leading a Sew a Monster craft activity. But I wanted to give you a sense of some of the things that we have going on. So here's a little bit of what we can expect. We're going to be having spooky tunes from Urbana Pops Orchestra, fall tote decorating with the Urbana Park District. We have 2 clubs coming from the universities, University of Illinois and Illinois State University, who are going to be volunteering to lead activities with the Urbana Public Arts Program, and they're going to be in full cosplay. So the first is the Star Wars Club at the University of Illinois, and the second, down here in the bottom left, is Spread the Magic from Illinois State University, who typically cosplay as like DC or Marvel characters and Disney princesses. We are going to have a pop-up photo booth with some homemade props, and youth can kind of play with props or make their own. We'll have a more simplified monster making out of paper with, for youth for whom sewing might be a little advanced. Pumpkin ring toss, spiderweb escape, scary story time with the Urbana Free Library in conjunction with Read at the Market. And as always, all of our vendors, all participating vendors will have trick-or-treating at their booths. So this is a chance to get dressed up. We're also looking for more volunteers. So commissioners, if you have ever had a moment of interest in volunteering, this may be the one that will bring a lot of joy to your face. This is a chance to get dressed up in a costume and to interact with youth and run activities. So if that's something that is of interest to you, we're still looking for more people who might want to come out on Saturday between 8 and noon and participate in that. But that's just a little bit of an overview. Young Artist Studio, our partnership with the Urbana Free Library, has continued as a monthly series presented every third Sunday of the month at 3 p.m. Our September feature was Mark Enslin with a puppet making workshop. Our October feature this past Sunday featured Gayatri Menaki presenting a Zentangle for Kids arts workshop. And this upcoming November, we will have seed collage making with Anna Barnes on November 18th. These have been very well attended, and we keep getting kind of returners and new people out every Sunday that we have it. So we had outgrown the children's library room, so we moved it to the Lewis Auditorium, and we have at times been at capacity in that room too. Wow. So it's a really wonderful program. I want to update you about the Urbana Sculpture Project, since we've had quite a bit of movement there as well. Just this past month, we were able to install Ice Pops. This is the sculpture that now appears at the Boneyard Creek Crossing for a period of 2 years. Here you can see Craig on the right posing with his sculpture. Mayor Marlin came and talked a little bit about the value of public art and investing in things like sculptures and public displays of art. To a crowd that gathered on Monday, October, let me remember when it was. When was it? 8th. Down below, you'll see the sponsors of this sculpture together with Mayor Marlin, myself, and the staff of the Public Art League. The sponsors included Mike Hosier and Jean and Mike and Jean are featured here, Peshkin, and the group together sponsored this sculpture in particular for the Urbana Sculpture Project. I also want to note that we were able to bring Craig to not only install, but he was able to give a brief talk. We had kind of a small talk for youth about the value of public arts, and youth got a chance to write questions for the artist. And this is a tradition I want to carry forward, so really giving the artist an opportunity to kind of connect, do a Q&A, do a brief talk, have a gathering, so that the installation kind of has some pomp and circumstance around it. We had a ribbon cutting as well. And the next one that's being installed is Races by Bobby Joe Scribner. We're hoping to install this next month. So we're in communication right now with Bobby Joe to set a date. And this is an exciting development for us as well because this one will be installed on the corner of what is, it would be Race and Green Street. So right there by the Urbana Free Library, in the corner that will eventually be part of the MCOR project, or at least partially the MCOR project. Since it worked out that the MCOR project's on a slightly different time schedule at this point, and there was a desire to beautify that corner, it's also on the Illinois Marathon route, which is what we really wanted for races. It became kind of a perfect marriage, so we were able to arrange that. We are also planning a ribbon cutting ceremony, so as soon as I have a date for that, I plan to send it out to the commission and to invite the public through various advertising on social media, press release, and flyers. This one also, there's a good news piece to this too, which is that the library's foundation was really excited about it, and they have committed, I believe, $1,000 towards some landscaping that would also help highlight the sculpture itself. And together we're reaching out to the Illinois Marathon organizers to see what other things we can build along the route that incorporate the sculpture. Lastly, just want to mention that A New Leaf by Don Lauer was not renewed, but was purchased by a sponsor in Champaign. So that sculpture will stay in our Twin City community. It will be moving away from its location outside of Mesquita Grill in downtown Urbana. It's kind of inside a little bit of some landscaping around the parking lot that's there. But it will be moving to Champaign. I don't know the exact location, but I'll share it as soon as I know. And then we also renewed 3 red houses for another 2 years, so that will stay in Boneyard Creek Crossing. There may be some other sculptures added. I know that Mike Hosier, for instance, wanted to sponsor another, but it ended up that that artist found another sponsor quicker, and no longer was that sculpture available. But as soon as we hear more news about what sculptures are coming to Urbana through other private sponsors, I'm happy to pass that news along, and I'll report on it in my staff report. Lastly, just want to give a brief on social media marketing. We've seen an increase in Facebook and Instagram, not so much on Twitter. I can pretty much attest to the fact that I use Twitter less for the public arts program, so it doesn't shock me there. But our Instagram has been getting more traffic, and Facebook, which is really a great spot for folks who do use social media to catch up with the public arts program, because I often put things like upcoming events as event pages and things of that nature there. And as always, we're always looking for more volunteers or people to get involved, but that's your report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Okay, let's go ahead with the first grant presentation. That'll be Jancy Philippus of Illinois Summer Youth Music.
Do you know where this is, Jancy? I think if you go to view on the top,
Okay,
and then go down to full screen mode.
there we go. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jancy Philippus. I'm the Public Engagement Coordinator at the University of Illinois School of Music. I also serve as the Assistant Director for Illinois Summer Youth Music and one of the coordinators for ISYM Hip Hop. I'm here to tell you a little bit about this really fun project that happened earlier this summer. This is the second year that we've offered Illinois Summer Youth Music Hip Hop. The program runs for 1 week from July 15 through 21, 2018, and as you can imagine, it focuses on hip-hop culture and music. And in this program, students come together with local performers and our professor of music education, Dr. Adam Cruz, and also now Professor Lamont Holden, who will actually be teaching at the School of Music this spring, which is exciting for us, and create and write and produce and record and perform all original hip-hop music. If you'll give me just a moment, I'm going to pull up my information. So in this program, students spent a week on the U of I campus writing original lyrics, producing their own beats, and practicing their final performance on the Canopy Club on July 21st. Other special events throughout the week include workshops with Mother Nature, who is a local Urbana performing hip-hop duo. a panel discussion with Mother Nature and We Levitate, who are also locally based performers and advocates and musicians. They have students enjoy a personal sound check and show at the Canopy Club, and they were able to enjoy performance with Mother Nature, as well as attend the Good Vibes Only Festival featuring Mother Nature. Events at Illinois Summer Youth Music were held in conjunction with our first annual Hip Hop Music Ed Symposium, which invited in educators from all over the state and country to talk about how we can incorporate hip hop music into a music ed setting. All performances for both events took place at the Canopy Club, which was extremely valuable for students because they were able to perform at the venue where our local hip hop artists in town perform. Furthermore, audience members from the community were able to enjoy performances given by our students, faculty, and guest artists. Mother Nature's involvement in Illinois Summer Youth Music Hip Hop was critical for all participants because their artistic impact on the city of Urbana, their hometown, and emphasized focus on community on ISYM Hip Hop and the opportunity for local students to engage with both artists. I think the best way to kind of see what Illinois Summer Youth Music Hip Hop is all about is just to kind of see it in action. To give a little preface of what the 300 is, all of the rooms in which the group met were numbered 300. So the name that everyone came up with was the 300, and that was their community. So I'm going to let you watch a little bit of this to kind of see all of the fun that the students have. The backing track you hear was composed as a group by all of the students. So I provided this link to Rachel, and I encourage you to go and see the rest of the video. There's some footage there towards the end of the performance at the Canopy Club, which was so much fun. I got to go up on stage and hang out with a couple of the students as they performed. So it's, as you can tell from the minute or so video that you saw, there's a lot of fun and a lot of energy, a lot of one-on-one interaction with our instructors as students engage in the curriculum. Some of the faculty, in addition to Dr. Cruz and Lamont Holden, included C.J. Seymour, a.k.a. C.J. Run, D'Angelo Brown, also known as Black Mage, Pete Shungo, also known as Afro D, and Marcelo Kumujian, who is active in our University of Illinois Hip Hop Collective. Additionally, we had, as I mentioned, Mother Nature and We Levitate. I've already mentioned a lot of our project overview. There are 3 points of pride that we have about Illinois Summer Youth Music Hip Hop Camp. First off, thanks to the generous support of the council, we were able to provide 3 full scholarships for Urbana students. We have never turned away a student from Illinois Summer Youth Music Hip Hop for financial reasons, and everyone who has wanted to attend ISYM Hip Hop has been able to attend. And the accessibility of the camp, thanks to the support provided by the council, is something that we're very grateful for and proud of. I like to kind of look at ISYM Hip Hop in numbers. This year we had 17 participants, which was almost double of what we had last year. We had 15 total instructors working with our students, so again, that one-on-one instruction time was very meaningful. We had 3 full scholarships for Urbana students. There was 100+ hours of planning, production, and promotion. I noticed in my grant report it asked for a number of hours. It was very hard to quantify that because it was a lot. There are 144 hours per student of contact hour within the camp. There's 7 hours of shows that students participate and go to. We had 300 audience members at the ISYM faculty show, 100 audience members at the Mother Nature Show, which in that small room at the Canopy Club feels nice and cozy, which was nice for us. And we had 150 audience members at the ISYM Student Show. So our students not only got to perform, but they got to perform for some pretty packed houses, and they got to see the Canopy Club kind of at its capacity, which is a valuable part of the experience for the young people that got to participate. I think images are always a fun way to see growth, but the top image was our camp last year and the bottom image was our camp this year. So the involvement grew not only on the part of the students, but also in the instructors, which was really great for us this year. Community impact is one of our biggest goals as we think strategically about our design for the camp in terms of who we get involved both as students and as teachers, and also the music that is reflected. I've provided Rachel a link to the ISYM 2018 mixtape, and I would encourage you to listen and listen with big ears because you will hear some incredibly powerful messages from these young people. I can say that this camp was a place of healing for some students that attend, and specifically for students from Urbana who attended. So I would just invite you to go and take a listen to those mixtapes when you have a moment. The music that you'll hear students' original songs reflect on personal experiences, especially Urbana students. As you can imagine, of the partnerships I've already mentioned, there's deep faculty and student partnerships that don't end at camp. Our faculty continue and have continued to support our students. One of the students at the camp just recently released a new song, and CJ bumped it on their social media. So there's continued support for the art that these students are making, which is really wonderful. It doesn't just end at ISYM Hip Hop Camp. Student partnerships, there's a really neat story. CJ performed a show with Mother Nature up in Chicago, and a group of students from Urbana all carpooled together up to see CJ and Mother Nature perform in Chicago. So these connections last beyond camp. And then community partnerships, the partnerships that we form with the Canopy Club, the partnerships that we form with local artists, and the partnership that we've formed with the Urbana Arts Council. All of this has been an incredibly valuable part of ISYM Hip Hop. And like I mentioned, the encouragement of emerging artists. The young students who are attending are continuing to perform. A couple of the students performed later in the summer at Friday Night Live in downtown Champaign, some of the songs that they wrote at camp. So there's very much an attitude of the work that is done at ISYM Hip Hop. It fosters growth beyond, and it's been exciting to see the work that these students have continued to do after camp. I mentioned the performances. We had the faculty show at Canopy Club on July 17th. We had a show featuring Mother Nature, CJ Run, and We Levitate on July 19th. The students got to attend a personal sound check with Mother Nature. It was a personal show for the students, which was really, really fun. And then the Hip Hop Student Showcase on July 21st, as I've already mentioned. In terms of our project marketing, we had 3 posters that were designed. We had paper posters that we hung up and also gave students as a little memento for all 3 events. You'll notice that the City of Urbana logo is on all of them. We also used these on social media marketing, on Facebook, Instagram. It was shared pretty widely, not only by myself, and I thank Rachel for her help with that too, but also a lot of the faculty were sharing this on their personal social media and kind of tapping into their local following. I mentioned some of the ways in which ISYM Hip Hop has grown this year. We've doubled our enrollment. We are engaging more of our School of Music students to participate in this curriculum so they get to kind of see ways in which to incorporate hip hop into music ed curriculum. We've added more instructors to maintain sort of a mentorship style of instruction, and the addition of the Mother Nature guest residency show was actually one of the strongest ways in which we've grown this year. And we have plans to continue growing. we have a really strong desire to continue our engagement with local CU students, and we have already started working on a series of maybe once a month workshops throughout our community and public spaces in both Champaign and Urbana to let more students know about this camp and to get contact information and kind of get them information on a one-on-one basis to let them know about this camp. We're continuing to develop our connections with local teachers and mentorship programs. The unique thing about ISYM Hip Hop is that students don't necessarily participate in a band, choir, and orchestra program, so we have to look outside of a traditional music classroom to let students, to make sure that students who would want to know about this program. So we're working on ways in which we can do that, especially through these community events, and so that we can continue to make financial access something that students don't have to worry about. We are continuing fundraising efforts. We have already raised about $1,500 for this year and are going to continue because financial access is one of the most important parts of the work that we do at ISYM Hip Hop. That is the information that I have for you. Can I answer any questions about our event?
Well, that's a great program.
Thank you.
I do. You mentioned that, did you say that 3 students came from Urbana?
Yes.
So where were there a total of 17
Mhm.
students? Where were the others from?
We had students from Champaign, Urbana, Mahomet, Chicago, St. Louis area. We had students from Michigan and Indiana come down this year. So just, I think, by word of mouth and also the uniqueness of the program, because there aren't a whole lot of summer hip-hop camp sort of a la your typical band and orchestra camps that are happening. So another benefit of this program, sort of bringing people from all over, at this point, all over the country, is that not only do we celebrate our local experiences, everyone sort of gets to celebrate their own experiences and talk about similar experiences being from different places, but also different experiences being from different places.
And what was the age range of the participants?
The age range of the participants was 7th grade all the way up to 12th grade. So we had middle school and high school together. I will say one of the ways that we are hoping to grow next year is to kind of, within the camp, have 2 tracks. So one track would be more for beginners, like this is their first way to engage with hip hop. And then the other track would be for students who are already doing a little bit of that work and want to fine tune and advance. Have the track system also helps with the issue of, you know, we can have one group using the technology at one time and the other group using the technology at another time. So it kind of helps with the technology needs for the camp as well.
At this point, you know how nonprofits will have wish lists.
Mhm.
Is there anything in particular that's on your wish list, or that you need more financial resources to be able to do?
We always need more ways to, we always need more scholarship money for this program. And we do have students that pay tuition for it. Scholarship money allows us, or for example, grant funding allows us to defray operational costs, which then allows us to waive the costs for students. So I think funding that helps us to defray any of the operating costs, either for equipment or for personnel or sponsorship of some of these guest artists, would be great, because then money that we would use to sponsor guest artists could then be used to keep our operating costs low and offer opportunities for students to participate at an accessible cost for them.
So is the Sponsored Programs Administration on campus acting as your fiscal agent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would love to hear about what your vision is for the future, and if there's any possibility of having, now that you have somewhat cohorts, because it's now in its This is the second year or third year?
This is the second year.
Second year. Whether there might be opportunities to have like first-year folks follow up with, and second-year folks get together. Did you have anybody repeat it? So come back again?
Actually, over half of last year's class came back this year.
That's great.
So that was really, really neat to see the reunion of those students, but also see the returning students serve as leadership for the new class of students, Hip Hop Class 2018. In terms of having a reunion, we hadn't really talked about that. I guess with this year, it was sort of inherently built in because we had so many returners. I think this idea of having, multiple tracks kind of implies that there will be a little bit of that happening because you come back you come in your first year as the beginner track, and then you kind of have that incentive to come back to learn what the more advanced skills and the advanced track or whatever nomenclature we decide to come up with. I think one thing that we could do is, as students continue to produce music, as some of the alumni of this program have done, to help those students by, saying, hey, check out what so-and-so is doing now. They were an alumni of ISWAM Hip Hop 2018, and look at the awesome work they're doing in their career now.
And I'm thinking back to your presentation from the grant you received last year for this same project, and I recall that there was a place online where we could listen to the mixtape. Is that true of this year too?
Yes, I provided the link for that. I think it's go.illinois.edu/hip-hop 2018 mixtape. I'll verify that for you. But there's a link in the materials I forwarded. But there is a mixtape that is mixed down and mastered. That's kind of a nice take-home, not memento, but just product, really, for these students of all of the work that they do together to record and produce these songs.
Great.
I do. How much is tuition for a single student to attend?
There are two different rates. There's a commuter rate for students who go back and forth to camp each day, and that is $475. And there is a on-campus rate, which is $699, which includes dorms and meals. The scholarships that are offered, we also include the cost of meals with that. So when they are offered a full scholarship, the students don't have to worry about finding a place to go have lunch. I will say that that tuition covers dollar for dollar actual costs of instruction, personnel fees, equipment.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, our next grant presentation will be Dan Denton, who did the grant on chainsaw carving.
I'm just doing this for the PowerPoint.
That's fine. Welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Denton, and I'm a chainsaw carver. I applied for the chainsaw carving grant, not chainsaw carving grant, the grant for doing that. And I guess the way that I did it was in 3 separate shows. 2 of them were in conjunction with Madeline Wolfsky, and it was at the Imbibe on Friday nights, the first Fridays of the month. 2 of those were there. The third one was at the Sweet Corn Festival.
Okay.
It went really great. It was just an incredible experience. It was just a lot of fun. It was, gosh, I did the best that I could with the carving and the process. And as in my grant, I did 3 different shows. The first one was I did the rough out, the blocking, the basic shape of an eagle. In the second show, I did the rough out of an eagle, the blocking of it out, and I put a few more details in it. I brought in like a head and a beak and the wings where they go, but I didn't finish it. And then in the third show, I had the first and the second items there. And in the third show, I did a complete eagle. In the pictures, the picture on the bottom in the center, where the sign is on it, you can't really zoom it in and see it too well. That's one of, I think that's the second show that I did. And it was pretty neat. You know, it was a pretty neat deal. It was the same night as the women's wrestling.
Ah,
The women's, I guess, professional wrestling or show or whatever. There was one little problem there. I was supposed to be able to do this at what was called, or what she thought was, a city parking lot at the corner of Oak and Race Street. But that is a privately owned parking lot.
oh,
3 spots are rented by the city for the adult education center that's close by, and those 3 are handicap spots. And when I went there to set up, I found out that was a privately owned parking lot, and I was not allowed there.
Oh, no.
And the owner of that lot has everyone towed away that don't pay for parking in that lot. So immediately went over to what was city parking lot number 1. And that, I guess that's where it was. It was on the north side of the boneyard, and the women's wrestling was set up on the south side. So what was potentially, one thing, could have been a disaster and did not do it at all. It turned out real good because I was real close to the attraction of the
right.
women's wrestling and
Claw.
yeah, and the brewery was there.
Right.
That was really neat. At the first show, I guess I should backpedal. At the first show, I did it on the street, Griggs Street, and it was right out in front there, and that was really, really neat time, because that place was new. It had just opened up, and there were quite a few people there, and it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun, if nothing else. I made some things other than just what was on the agenda for me to do for the grant. And there's a piece now that's in Rachel's office that it was kind of neat. I don't have a picture of it. Back,
Which one?
oh yeah,
Oh.
there it is, right there.
Oh,
This one right here, the bear. In the upper right-hand corner, there is a relief carving, and it was kind of neat because I cut the whole thing out. As I cut it out, it was a piece of wood, and I yelled, "Hey, Rachel, look!" She looked over, and I took that whole piece of wood out, and there appeared a bear. That was all that was left in it.
Right.
So it was pretty cool. That and finished it, had to take it home and finish it, put the polyurethane on it and stain to let it
Right.
set up, sanding and all that. But it was, Pete signed, she told me I needed a sign.
Well, a flyer. But if you tell a chainsaw carver to make a flyer, he's gonna carve it out of wood.
She told me you need to have a sign. You need to have something up, announcing that or showing that it's for the Urbana Arts Grants Program. And I said,
Right.
you mean like a sign? So it was
Right.
4 foot long and 14 inches wide, cedar, and it was, it said Urbana Arts Grants Program. The grants is in red lettering, which looked real good at home in my shed, but because the wood is red also,
Right.
it don't show up too good here.
Yeah.
When you looked at it, you could see it and it stuck
Yeah.
out, but in the picture, it didn't show up that well. What else we have?
I wanna play this video.
What?
I'm gonna play this video.
Oh, okay, she's got a video.
Okay.
So there's a wonderful video about Dan that was made previous to him getting the arts grant. So it was made in February, is that right, of this past year. But I encourage Dan that I think it does show a bit about him and his work and is worth sharing with you all.
My name is Dan Denton. I'm from Champaign, Illinois. I do chainsaw carving. The reason that I do it is this was I made a nameplate log for some friends of mine who have been married like 52 years, and I put their last name on it, and I gave it to them, and I seen how happy they were, and it made me feel so good. I don't really sell much stuff. I give most of the things that I make away as gifts. As I'm doing things for other people is a very rewarding way life. It's probably the richest life that a person can have when they're thinking and doing for other people, because they then get, in return, one of the happiest existence I believe there is on the face of this earth. And that's being able to do something for someone else, your time. Being able to think about them and being able to help other people takes the focus off of me and my little problems. I can stay happy, I can stay content, I can stay in a frame of mind that I am useful to others and useful to God. When people are helping others, they are helping themselves. It's such a rewarding existence. Okay, a couple more things. I have to acknowledge the people that help me out. This is not something that I can do alone. I personally had a valve replacement in my heart, and I have a pacemaker, and I'm really weak. I can't lift a lot of real heavy stuff. I'm on disability, so when it comes to real heavy lifting, I always have to have some help. When it comes to using a computer, when I started this grant, I didn't use email for over 10 years. And Rachel made me do it. It was a necessity. It was absolutely necessary. And I just wanted to refuse and say, I just don't care to become a millennial. I'm too old for that. I'm not a millennial. I'm an old guy. So anyway, I did what I could to learn how to use that. I got a computer, and that was a big start. And I got Wi-Fi. You know, I'm learning, I'm working at it. But when you start up a chainsaw, I'll tell you what, as soon as I start up a chainsaw, something happens. And people look. You start up a computer, nobody looks, nobody cares about that. But you start up a chainsaw, people get one's attention right away. The thing I got to do is, about that, the technical assistance that I had to recruit someone who absolutely knew nothing whatsoever about writing grants, doing grants, or anything else. And it was my technical assistant, Elaine Shalley. Man, without her, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. I wouldn't have been able to complete the application. You know, good enough to make it look really, really decent. I am just not that type of person. I am not that generation. She did a wonderful job. The volunteers that helped me, the people that helped me, her son, Christian Celli, he came out and he helped load the truck, unload the truck, clean up, and stayed and helped me. He volunteered at the first show. At the second show, my neighbor, another friend of mine, he came out. He came with me. He helped me that day to get ready for the preparation. And then on the third day at the Sweet Corn Festival, two of my dear friends came, and one of them's here, Bridget Smith, and a guy, Don Todd. Don helped me load the truck at home and stuff, and I got there, and she knew that I was coming, so she was there like an hour before I got there. And then she stayed till the end of that evening and talking to people, exchanging information, talking, because she knows a little bit about it, because she always, whenever I work in town, she always comes up, she just shows up. And then she stayed until late. The next morning, on Saturday, she was there like an hour before I got there and stayed until I had the entire parking lot cleaned up, everything loaded on my truck, and just relentless. And I just can't believe it. With friends like that, I am so blessed to have friends like that that will help me out. Rachel was just wonderful. The girl with what's her name, Madeline? Madeline, wonderful, great with the First Fridays. What a good experience, you know, to be able to work in conjunction with someone else, parallel, and do two things, because she was so helpful, so helpful. And it's something that one person doing what I do, it's difficult. It can be done, but it is so much work. It's just a whole lot slower process. And with that, should I let them see what I made?
Yeah.
Do you want to
Show
see what
'em.
I mean?
Yes.
This could be, I don't know if this is going to go very well or not, but
All right.
there was a process in doing it there and then finishing it. And then the actual finish on it, I had to take to my home and do the finish, because it takes a while to set it and you can't touch it. But I painted it, had the eyes in, the fish, and the bottom. And it was complete at the third show. And I wore one of my favorite carving shirts. I wore that in the pictures that was from the first show. So the second show I wore this shirt. And then I actually had it at the third show. I thought for this meeting tonight, I would wear this shirt. So you can see the hat and the shirt, chainsaw hat and shirt. So I guess, is that it?
Do you have any questions for
Anybody
Dan?
have any questions?
Yes.
You know, I've had some input from constituents that we need to raise our profile. A constituent in my ward who said she just didn't know what public arts was doing, and I think one of the reasons, I mean, we're obviously doing a lot, but a lot of it doesn't have our label really prominently, and I thought I would mention it this time because I wonder if we could use your sign, your Urbana Public Arts, Urbana Arts Grants Program, as our distinctive logo, something, you know, different from the city logo, and really more, well, in the first place, it's coming from the arts program itself, and I think it's very distinctive. So if we may use that, I think that would be a really good label for all of our materials.
I'll just make a note. One thing I want to share is that I do think Dan's creativity should be an example to a lot of folks, and we've seen this among our grantees, taking the direction of you need to put our name somewhere on it as a sponsor, and then putting your own spin on it. I should have known, saying that to a wood carver, that it would be carved out of wood. But I think that's actually a great, even at minimum, a great thing for all the grantees to be thinking about is like, how do we creatively think about incorporating our sponsors? Yeah. And I was able to be out at all three of the events, and was able to talk to people about the Arts Grant Program and about Dan's work. And I try to come out to as many of the grantees things as I can make it out to. And it's a great opportunity, too, for the public arts program to have a presence, whether that's inviting our commissioners or the staff to come and be a part, or maybe give a welcome or things like that. I try to tell the people who receive our grants in their orientation that's just another way, too, to get our name out.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
I will say this too. When I was at the Sweet Corn Festival, there was a lot of time there where once I had gotten this done and the people walking up, I talked to them quite a bit about the grants program.
Good.
And gave eagle facts, things about eagles, information. But there was one of the officers, one of the women officers, had to come to the county building to use the restroom because, well, I have all this gear on and everything, and it's hard for a woman to take all this off in an outhouse because that was the restrooms that they had there. So she went in the county building, and I said, "You want me to make you something?" And she says, "Oh, this is funny." I said, "Yeah, I could make you something." So she went inside, used the restroom, and when she came back, I had made a feather about that tall, and it was a feather, and it was nice. You know, it was real cool. It was a lot of fun. She was amazed that she could do it, that I could do that, and gave it to her, and there were just one after another. Like every time they came around, I would talk with them, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. There were 2 professors from Pennsylvania that were here taking a course or something, a class at the U of I, and they came, and I did one for them. And they said, "Oh, there's a lot of that in Pennsylvania." I said, "Yeah, but do they make something and give it away to you?" She said, "No." And I made them a feather, and I gave it to this lady, and I said, "The only reason I'm giving this to you is because you're from Pennsylvania, and I like that." I could have said, they could have said they were from Montana or from Texas. And I had to say something. So I told them that. That's always a heartwarming feeling, you know, to make someone else feel good. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Great.
And the kids, it was by the bounce houses is where I was set up. And the kids were amazed.
I'm sure.
They would come up and they kept touching the animals, the bears and the eagles and stuff. They wanted to and touch it. So that's about it.
Okay.
I want to thank the commission. I want to thank Rachel for so much. She did so much. You know, and answered the phone so many times. Because I had a lot of questions. You know, and with that,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to review the Urbana Arts Grants proposed changes.
I have a handout. Give me just a moment.
Oh, okay, these are the 2.
All right, everyone. So this comes as part of a broader conversation that we've been having as an Arts Commission about assuming responsibility for special event funding previously given out at the discretion of City Council, and also the transformation of our commission into a Commission for Arts and Culture in Urbana. So this is a proposal for your review of some slight changes to the grant program. They're not huge, but they really have more to do with the framing of categorization than anything else. So heretofore, the program has been, it has sort of these different categories that relate to who is applying. The festival grant doesn't exactly fall under this description, but oftentimes we've divided the grant categories based on who's applying. So is it an individual? Is it a group? Is it a nonprofit? As we've discussed before, these categories, like anything else, cause some confusion at times with people wondering, well, what makes a group a group? What makes, you know, a nonprofit? We ask for 501c3 status, right? But what makes a festival a festival? And so really kind of trying to determine like where things go in the grant program. we don't need to go over these details. I was going to share a little bit background more about our arts grant program, but for the commission, you know quite a bit about this already. So I'll go over to just to reiterate the program goals, because I don't see an immediate need for these to change in any way, but I wanted to make sure that we share them once again. So the grant program goals have been determined to be integrate the arts into the urban environment, create a sense of place and purpose, promote tourism and commerce, increase the availability of publicly accessible projects in the arts, encourage emerging artists and art forms, preserve and commemorate local and multicultural traditions and histories, enrich the lives of Urbana residents and visitors, increase opportunities for residents to engage in the arts in its many forms, represent the community in its diversity, and encourage partnerships among artists, performers, businesses, and organizations. So we've funded things like Heartland Maker Fest, the Champaign-Urbana Folk and Roots Festival, Midwest Mending, West African Drum and Dance, Asian Heritage Month, or Asia Fest, Urbana First Fridays, and right now we're in this moment of transition. We've recently revised our mission to say the Arts and Culture Commission celebrates and nurtures the city of Urbana's cultural and artistic diversity, and this, you know, as was described for next month's meeting, has not yet been adopted in any sense as a new mission, but this is a proposed revision. And the transformation to arts and culture can mean more intentional support of cultural programming in the community and the incorporation of special event funding into our Urbana Arts and potentially Arts and Culture Grants program. We'll go over this later, but I want to share some of the summary of the revisions, which we'll get to since they're no longer new business. I think I'll present all of this at the same time. Is that okay? So we do have some revisions to the ordinance, and the proposed revisions to the ordinance include establishing the Public Arts Commission and Permanent Public Arts Program ordinance being amended to an Arts and Culture Program and Commission ordinance. So we would change the language of Urbana Public Arts Commission to Urbana Arts and Culture Commission at different points throughout the ordinance. And you can see that in your exhibit B's and B, you can see the original ordinance that we currently have, and exhibit A are the proposed changes. We added in a definition of culture. Right now, that definition was and includes, but is not limited to, historic and contemporary traditions of performance, custom, ritual, celebration, fashion, cuisine, knowledge, storytelling, heritage, and oral transmission. And we also included the revised mission as we laid out in previous meetings, as well as our vision statement. We removed the word arts from full diversity of the Urbana arts community to simply the full diversity of the Urbana community to incorporate arts and cultural diversity. And then notably, and this was something that we talked about at a previous meeting, we also are proposing that any grant over $5,000 should come before the Public Arts Commission rather than be juried. So for a little bit of context, the special event funding had to always be proposed and requested and applied for, in other words, in public meeting as to City Council. And because of these being larger sums of money, and because of the Public Arts Program and Commission being responsible for them, that would effectively change our ordinance to give authority, financial authority, on applications over $5,000 to the Public Arts Commission. And my proposal for that actually comes out of our conversations, and for not simply the reason of it being the larger sum of money and wanting that other sense of review, but also because as a commission, you have a historic knowledge oftentimes in ways that even though we have commissioners on our juries, that those juries may not. So information about not simply previous applications, but you hear all of the final reports, as you just did, of different grantees, so you have that historic knowledge to carry forward into other requests for funding. I do hope that we work together to kind of continue to develop evaluation processes for the grants, because I think we can come up with even more dynamic kind of requests for how we evaluate programs. But it's also because things like individual artist projects, to me, giving full authority to the Public Arts Commission would mean that there weren't closed juries, but that everything is, as our meetings are, televised and very public. And for requests for special events that are large scale, to me that doesn't seem unusual. But for something like an individual artist's project that may feel a bit more vulnerable because it's an individual artist's piece of work being publicly debated on television or discussed, would like to see that remain in a closed jury process, if possible. And that's sort of the logic I have there. If you can turn real quickly to your Urbana Arts and Culture Grant Program handout, one of the suggestions is to change the terming of categories away from who is applying and more generically to refer to different tiers of funding requests. So Tier 1, as proposed, would be for individual or small-scale projects ranging from $500 to $1,500 and requires no match. This is not wholly different from currently what is individual artist grants, but actually might speak better to certain projects that maybe previously applied under like nonprofit, but we're only asking for $500 for a program, or we're only asking for something small. So these are smaller grants. Tier 2 would be mid-size events, and they do require a 50% match. So that'd be $1,500 to $3,000 grants. And then, because there's some overlap between whether somebody's in Tier 1 or Tier 2, we can kind of flesh out exactly what would fit into those categories and what we'd be looking for that would help someone make a determination of, if they're applying for something that's $3,000, do they want to go through Tier 2 or Tier 3? We can kind of flesh that out. But Tier 3 would then be large-scale festivals or events, and require a 70% match. And that's $3,000 to $10,000 requests. I've also kept Arts in the Schools right now separate. We talked about maybe making that more generally like a youth grant. And I think that's for us to talk further about. Right now, I kept the title Arts in the Schools and really like the intentionality behind asking this to reflect artists who want to do work in Urbana School District 116 with school collaboration. And as before, they go up to $3,000, so that's what we have here. And then one thing I added, and this was briefly anecdotally talked about here in the Arts Commission, but one of the things that we found a lot in the review of different arts and culture programs is that a lot of other cities with arts and culture programs host a poet laureate program. And I was really interested in thinking about what that could look like here for the city of Urbana. So as proposed, it would be selecting through a jury process one applicant one applicant out of a pool each year to be designated as the City of Urbana's Poet Laureate. Very similar to other programs across the country, that poet would then also hold a series of events, or maybe 1 or 2 events in the fall and the spring, in conjunction with the public arts program and the city. Typically, it includes things like a proclamation from the mayor. We might come up with a series of programs or things that activities that poet laureate would be involved in. But this would be then another annual program made possible through the funding through arts grants. So your handout includes like minimum and maximums and some details about match. But this is sort of the proposal as it stands right now, and I'd love to hear feedback or ideas.
Go ahead.
I need an arithmetic clarification. If you say a 50% match, does that mean that the match has to be 50% of the total, or does that mean that the match has to be 50% of what we award? In other words, let's say we awarded $1,000, or let's say we awarded $2,000. Would the required match be $2,000, or would the required match be $1,000?
It's like a 1-to-1.
1-to-1. Okay, so 50% is 1-to-1. Okay.
Yeah. Other questions?
Okay.
One thing that is not included here, and that I think at this point we've talked among staff and would be really tough to implement this year, would be to, without further exploration is the idea of multi-year grants. So we have talked about, like, what would it be like to have some grants that would actually guarantee funding for 2 years or 3 years, and that needs a little bit more time to be fleshed out. With our grant period being something that typically we announce in the next month or two, I don't think that we can incorporate that this cycle, but it's something that we can explore for next cycle.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess my quick thought is that unless there's really a compelling reason to do multi-year, when you say multi-year funding, do you mean funding that will go beyond the current fiscal year, or do you mean for multiple years?
It would be for multiple years. So, and it is, when it comes up, is not around typically our arts grants as often as it is around special events. So for instance, when we funded things like Folk and Roots or Pygmalion Music Festival, or some of these things where, first and foremost, not knowing whether you have the funding while you're starting to plan a festival, usually months, if not years in advance, you're working with a lot of hypotheticals. And so it's become a request of our repeat grantees that we consider something like a multi-year program. And you know, rather than saying we can't do it, I'm open to us exploring it and hope that the commission can at least think it through and see how, what might be possible for something like that. I can just say, like, where I came from working in the cultural centers on campus, we have some grants on campus that are like that, where it might not be necessarily even always a guarantee, but that there's a different kind of application for somebody that's applying for a 2-year cycle or a 1-year cycle, or possibly like applying to renew. Anyway, we don't have to necessarily come up with those answers, but that is something that you'll note is not included in here, and could be something that we consider into the future. But right now, this is the proposal.
So I guess that would really help me, you know, down the road, in thinking about this in detail, would be maybe some real numbers. How far in advance, let's say you're doing Folk and Roots or you're doing Pygmalion, how far in advance do you typically need to commit to people whom you want? And so we could look at, you know, like, you know, obviously this is an estimate, but it'll be an estimate based on experience. And then I think we would, I for one, but probably others would be equipped to really make a judgment on whether that would make sense to do that. I mean, concept makes good sense, but I'd like to see really the more specific time frames that are typical.
Yeah, and time frame comes up all the time. Time frame comes up all the time with respect to some of the feedback that we get, especially when it comes to booking like national touring acts and bringing them to the city of Urbana versus booking local acts. There's certainly different time frames and needs when you're planning a live musical tour of some kind, or you're tapping into a tour.
You know, this is a very specific thing. It just popped into my head. Naomi and I go to the Sandwich Lifehouse concerts. I don't know if you know them.
In Sandwich, Illinois?
No,
Oh.
in Champaign, Illinois.
Oh,
And they get wonderful people up, primarily from Nashville, who are like below the level of being really famous, but they're really, really good. And they are every bit as good as, and you know, these people are in town. They could probably do another event on like the next day. Typically those are on a Friday night or a Saturday night. And I would, so that's Cynthia and Ernie Blackwelder who do those. I would make some contact with them about the idea of doing some double booking, because they get really terrific. I mean, they get people who are, these are the best people that you probably never heard of. They're really terrific.
Well, again, my concern would be, which has always been, that we not get stuck doing the same 5 or 6 projects every year over and over again without having considered, whether there are other projects that might be coming up. I mean, that's kind of how Folk and Roots got started. They came to us. I mean, not that our money was the only money put in, but we helped them with seed money. And I guess we've always struggled with the idea of, is this seed money or is this sustaining money? So, just to
Yeah, and
mention
that
it.
is language I haven't incorporated here, and I think that's something that, we do have to kind of think about.
Right.
And it might be that certain grant categories, and especially once we get to multi-year grants, you could, I think as the tiers get larger, you can expect different things. One thing that's true, too, of our becoming responsible for the special event funding is that there are groups, and Folk and Roots is a great example, who have both received special event funding and received an arts grant. And that's only because we have these 2 different routes to get funding.
Right.
And they requested it. But
Right.
what's interesting is that also creates some burden on them because they have 2 different sets of reporting for 2
Right.
different parts of the city. This is really a unique opportunity in a way to kind of streamline them together and make, these grants possible with a different kind of set of reporting. And that's true that some of the reporting may look different based on the tier that is applied to.
I'm going to have to excuse myself a little early, but I was kind of curious. I don't know much about the current process of festival, historically, so I'm just curious, how much of a departure is it to require matching funds and that sort of thing? Like, is that something that festival requesters are accustomed to? Is that going to be
Yes.
like a change for them, or I don't know much about it?
They are required to have matches for special events. And
At these
even,
levels?
I cannot recall exactly for the
I think
special
the
event
level has
funding.
changed.
Okay.
Because I believe it was 50, and now it's, for the highest level, it's going to be 70.
For our grants, that's true, but
Yeah.
I don't know for special event funding.
Yeah. Oh, that's true, yeah.
Eric may have more insight if you remember from the city council.
So, and then one point of clarification for me, I thought I understood the match until Eric asked this question. So if I requested $2,000, I'd have to come up with 1,000, or I'd have to come up with 2,000? That's where I'm not clear. For like the 50% match as an example.
It's your total cost, and then 50% of that ought to come from
Another
other
source.
sources.
So my
And-
total budget's 3,000, I'm requesting
Yeah.
2,000 from Urbana, I'm coming up with 1,000.
No,
on
no.
my own.
No.
No. So I think it would be clearer if the match requirement were, if you stated it as 1-to-1, and in the case of Tier 3, 3 to 10, 3
Or
to,
maybe say
3 to 7.
percentage of total.
or percentage of total, yeah, because that will continue to be confusing at every
Yeah.
iteration.
Okay. This is great feedback. Any other things that you want to make sure I note down? And because of, today's meeting not quite making quorum, we get to continue this conversation in November. So this is also a chance, I'll send this out via email electronically for those folks who can't be here. And I encourage us to kind of think about it together. And then when we come back on the second Tuesday of November, we'll get together, rehash some of these questions too. But if you have questions in the meantime or pieces of feedback, please don't hesitate to also share them with me via email or phone call. And I'll make sure to incorporate those two into our discussion next month. Any other questions?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay. Did anybody else have announcements? Okay, in that case, I move that we adjourn. Can I have a second? We're done. Thanks for coming.